Yeah.
All right. So last time I talked to you, man, I was really like, I took a lot of cool shit that you dropped on our last podcast. One of them being on how great of a success you had with your breeding. I think you went 40 for like 40. What was it again? Like we're talking about last year's, not this year's, but how many clutches?
Last year was about 36 clutches or 42 clutches. It was in that range. I don't remember right now.
It was like 40 out of 42. Like you
Oh,
missed.
I've
Like
only got like 4 or 5 females not to go for me last year. It was
okay, it was
very successful.
really successful, right? So how's that compared to this year? If we could just talk about what your success has been like this year. There's been a lot of talk. Like I've always talked about how late my shit went unexpectedly. So I just want to know how it went for you.
So this year I had about like 65 females going. And right now I'm about 42 clutches in. I still have a bunch of females dropping clutches, so I am running late. But this year I did have a couple of like key females that were going to go for me reabsorb just before ovulation too. It was like really depressing. Wow. I had a special double het monsoon pied, a special double het monsoon pied, and she reabsorbed around 28 millimeters. So that was just not fun. And then I had a clown go and reabsorb as well. So, and she was bred, it was a vanilla clown bred to an orange dream fire butter ultramel. So
the reabsorbing thing, right? Like, I mean, does that normally have effect on them the year after that, or do they normally typically lay like the next year with from what you've experienced?
So we're keeping more track of the follicle development now, mutation creation, and even my own collection when I bring the ultrasound over.
Right.
And we're seeing that girls are pulling back their follicles, reabsorbing. But then we notice that they're actually building again not too long later, sometimes within a month, sometimes 3 to 4 months later. So It does look like they're still going to lay. It's just that one cycle didn't make it.
So, I mean, just because they reabsorb doesn't mean you should stop pairing. Like, I mean, you necessarily don't need to wait till next year to pair or whatever is what you're saying.
If you have an ultrasound and you actually know the follicle size, I do around 12 millimeters, 11 millimeters. I'll start pairing. So I've had females go up to 28. Like my special double het, she went to 28 millimeters. She went back down to 9. And then now she's around 13 again. And she dropped down about 2 or 3 months ago. So now she's back in the breeding cycle. But for every snake, it's different. And if you don't have an ultrasound, you can't tell exactly when to go.
I could be completely wrong on this, or I could be completely right. But I could 100% see people buying an ultrasound and completely just using it for no fucking reason, like just using it, right? So with your experience, like let's just say you have a female that showed follicle development and then it disappeared, right? Mm-hmm. At what point do you feel like, okay, I should check this female again?
Well, mutation creation, we check the females every 2 weeks. And for myself, I check about every 3 weeks to a month. And I think that's about a really good place to check because people think there's a breeding season when some females are going to be building outside of the actual breeding season, right? So if you're checking every 3 weeks, every 2 weeks, you know exactly when your female's ready to go and when to start pairing them.
Cool. That's solid. I always, because I mean, I'd say it's fucking house. I'm trying to buy a house and it's sucking everything I have like out of me. Like I can't just be MJ right now and it sucks, but I really need an ultrasound. Like, and the ultrasound I want to get is really awesome. It connects to your phone. It's a butterfly ink one. It's expensive, but to me, it's worth it because I've actually used it. But I just, I would be that guy if I had an ultrasound. I would be ultrasounding every day just so I could kind of get comfortable with it. But then at the end of the day, you got to know what you're ultrasounding. Like you got to know, do you know for a fact a female does have follicles in her? So you know what follicles look like on the phone or on the computer. You know what I mean? Because that is the important part, is knowing what it looks like on the screen. You know what I mean? But I could tell you right now, man, I've seen follicle developments on chondros and ball pythons, and ball pythons are way easier to spot, as far as like compared to a fucking little goddamn like ping pong ball, or like whatever, or like a little BB or whatever. It's not easy. Yeah, it's difficult. But another question. So at what point did you implement ultrasounding to your collection? Was that something you started right off the bat, or did you do it after a couple of years? When did you add an ultrasound to your collection?
So like shortly after our last podcast.
Oh, so recent.
Yeah, recently.
Nice. And, respect.
So this year is pretty much the first full season I'm going to go with using an ultrasound, and it's different. I like it, but I kind of want to go back to still pairing my old ways because I've had such great success with it. Like this year, I did have the reabsorptions,
Right.
and I don't know. I might be chalking it up to maybe not enough pairings, maybe running the males too thin. But I'm not saying I'm blaming the ultrasound, but I do want to go back to breeding the way I used to breed, and because the ultrasound may be too comfortable. That's what I'm thinking.
And there's the steps that you feel like you were important that you normally wouldn't miss, that you probably missed due to ultrasound or whatever. But you're definitely adding another step into a mix that wasn't broken. You know, like you had a process that was perfect, and then you just try to get a little spiffy with it, which that's what I'm trying to do. But really, like, honestly, like I'm not gonna lie, this year sucked because I had to wait till fucking July to get my first clutch, which was weird. I was like, dude, I'm not gonna, and I'm trying to buy a house, you know, so I was relying on some of these clutches to come through on the low, you know. So but regardless, like that's when I was scratching my head. I was like, I should buy an ultrasound, but then I was like, at this point, if it's not going to go, it's not going to go, whatever the fuck. But I just kept pairing things. I didn't stop, and eventually things happen. And I feel like with ball pythons, like things are going to happen. Like I feel like it's, unless you're trying to spread a male so thin, then I could understand why you'd want to ultrasound, because, you know, Billy is notorious for that fucking 2-lock. It's done. You know what I mean? And I've gotten 2-lock and dones off of luck. I didn't do that shit on purpose. And I feel like Billy could do that shit on purpose. And that's due to an ultrasound, you know, but at the end of the day, I'm looking past the ball pythons. I'm trying to breed chondros. I'm trying to breed fucking green tree pythons, which I'm not good at whatsoever. And that's the whole follicle development. When to put a male in is very crucial with the chondros. Like you could be too late. Like there's just like a lot of things that come into play that I learned a lot from my buddy Socrates and other people. That's why I feel like an ultrasound could really, really help you in other things. But I mean, necessarily, like I said, like I was just talking about, Austin, other than the male thing, I don't think an ultrasound is like a super like die hard fucking investment you should do, unless it's something you just want to do. But I don't feel like it's like a necessary thing. You know what I mean?
It could take you potentially to the next level if you use
it could for sure.
But the thing I feel the biggest issue with my ultrasounding this year was that I've seen how many females needed that last lock, and I like to leave my male in for about a week, so 7 days straight with the female.
Right.
Instead of that, I put them in. I seen them locked that night. The next day I came back, they're still locked. The next day after, if they were unlocked, I was taking them out and moving them to the next one. So that's where, like, I think the ultrasound just changed. I changed up with the ultrasound, so lock pairings weren't as long. I was looking more just for the locks. Now I want to go back to doing the long pairings, seeing if that gives me better results, because I did hear that putting a female and a male together for a longer period of time does help with follicle growth. So
I mean, I could tell you from I haven't been doing this for too long, but I mean, every time I see that motherfucker lock that girl pretty good, as soon as he unlocks, I remove him. He's out. But I could definitely, you know, I do know keeping it longer definitely isn't going to hurt. You know what I mean? Because I've definitely I've left a male with a female long enough where he locked her twice, and I was like, whoa, fucking horny bastard. You know what I mean? But you know, dude, like only you know your shit. Like nobody knows how your shit works but Austin. And that's how I am with my shit. Like nobody knows how the trap works but me. And I'm slowly but surely getting, like, you know, last year I had so many concerns because I had 4 girls that laid for me the year before that I was really hoping were going to lay, and nothing happened. Like they were getting locked, smashing food. They just never went off. Nothing happened. And I was like, what the fuck, you know? And that really discouraged me. But what happened was I was so like keen on the season, like, oh, it's like they laid at this point this year, and this year they're having ovulated. I'm just going to stop pairing. So what happened was those girls who didn't lay, I just stopped pairing them way too soon. And they never got that last lock they needed, or whatever the fuck they needed, they didn't get. So this year, I was in April. Shout out to my man Antoine again. Antoine, High Desert Pythons. Antoine came down with his ultrasound.
Nice.
And thank you for watching this week's Trap Talk clip. Please remember to like, share, subscribe, drop me a comment. And if you're looking for exclusive, non-release content here on YouTube, you're going to want to go down to the link and join the Trap Talk Patreon family. Once you become a part of the Patreon family, you get a link to the Discord, and then you also get tapped into all unreleased content. Thank you so much for all the love and support, and I'll catch you guys here next week. Cheers!